Okay, we are live, but I got to close some tabs. I just realized as I'm going live here. And while I'm doing that, got to let it breathe so that we can get Facebook in here with us. And then we'll get this party started proper. We're almost there. Hang tight. Almost there. Almost there. And we are good. So, welcome in, everybody. It is the Mile High Huddle podcast. I'm your host, Chad Jensen. With me is my fellow football priest. You know him, you love him. He is Zack Kelberman. Zack, dude, how's your weekend been? You get some R&R, bro?
It's been pretty good. I'm excited that it's full swing in Broncos training camp. They had shells on in yesterday's practice, and today they had their first off day. So again, it's football season. It's getting back into that rhythm and finally having legitimate things to talk about, chat, and break down, and not just what PFF thinks or Bleacher Report thinks. There's activity happening on the field that I want to get into tonight.
My weekend, sadly, was ruined by me dropping my phone as I went to watch my daughter do a horse show. Bear with me one sec, guys. I apologize. I had to turn this off. Look, you can see I dropped it and it hit just right on a rock, and boom, dunzo. So that was not a fun way to kick off the weekend. Yet I persevere. Here I am for Broncos country. Zack, as you mentioned yesterday, the shells went on. So we saw the intensity level climb significantly at Broncos camp. Not to say that it had been lackluster in any way, shape, or form. That's definitely not the case. But according to Luke Patterson, who was there for us doing Yowman's work, I tell you what, the Denver Broncos were energized by the number of fans north of 5,000 for Back Together Saturday. And it was popping. It was hot. It was intense.
Well, first of all, this is a sign from the phone gods, Chad, to finally go over to the dark side and get
It's
yourself an
too
iPhone.
late.
So
It's too late.
yeah, stuck in your Android ways. That'll serve you pretty well. But yeah, it's exciting for the fans, and I'm happy that there was a big time practice on a weekend. We talk about that on the podcast a lot, the lower attendance numbers, but we've been talking about the fact that it's hard to get away when you're working a 9 to 5 job, middle of the week. They don't really let you get an excused absence to go check out Broncos training camp. So I'm happy for the fan base. They got to see Russell Wilson yesterday, but I'm not putting too much onus or emphasis on the attendance or lack thereof in training camp. Again, wake me in week 2 if the Broncos season opener it's not packed to the gills to see Russ and company.
Oh yeah, real quick, some hellos. What's going on, Christian? Jumping in early with a super chat,
Thank you.
especially this time of year. You know we really appreciate that, my dog. And yes, we got to see. He shot me a text or a DM anyway on Twitter. Says like you saw a little while ago, I finally got my Russell Wilson jersey as a late birthday gift from my sister. Can't wait for the season to begin. Congrats on that, dude. It looks good on you. But really, we do appreciate that super chat, big dog.
2 words, Christian. Let's ride. Let's get to it. Appreciate you.
Amen. But yeah, let's talk real quick here. I want to go over a few of the, we've had Luke there, Luke Patterson covering Broncos training camp each and every day. And for the Back Together Saturday, which was a free ticketed event, that means the tickets didn't cost anything, but once they were gone, they were gone. And so when the Broncos made them available online, they were sold out almost immediately. So it was packed to the gills. Peyton Manning was in attendance with his boy watching. And first things first, we titled this episode, Zack, around the risers and fallers of training camp thus far. One of the risers should come as no surprise, but I want to talk about him real quick, and that is Patrick Surtain, the second, who has just been tearing it up. He had both Ejiro Evero, his defensive coordinator, his head coach, even Nathaniel Hackett, gushing about him yesterday. And by the way, Lawrence, appreciate you, bro. Was at the Colorado Cars and Coffee car show this morning and finally my Jeep got ducked. I don't know what that means.
Put an F there, not a D.
I don't know what that means. But Pat Surtain, Zack.
Yeah, I think that's what he's trying to say. His car got effed. So
I see.
if that's the case, sorry to hear that. But yeah, the entire secondary, Chad, to me, has been making plays roundly under Ejiro Evero. Not just Patrick Surtain, who we all knew was going to be a superstar, but Simmons is looking like arguably the best safety in the NFL through the first half or the first week of training camp. You have even K'Wan Williams making plays like PBUs. You even have Jaquan McMillian, the undrafted free agent corner, coming up big and impressing his coaches as well. I'll say it once more. I didn't know a lot about Evero before he became to the Broncos. We did know he was a secondary coach in LA last year. And my God, he came into Denver right away, and that secondary is popping. I can't wait to see it play out in the regular season.
Yeah, there was a piece today I wrote up covering just some of the remarks that the coaches had to say about Patrick Surtain. Yesterday, Ajero Evero said, quote, "Oh, it's crazy. He's just effortless. He's such a smooth athlete. I think that's one of the qualities of a really good player. You just make it look easy, and he's definitely in that line." Didn't really want to Evero compare Surtain to a guy he coached in LA, Jalen Ramsey, but he did at least liken Patrick Surtain's work ethic to the All-Pro that is pretty much, if you're in the NFL, it's a household name, Jalen Ramsey.
Yeah, apparently, according to Scott, ducking is a thing with Jeeps. I never had a Jeep, don't have a Jeep now, so I didn't know, but I'm happy it's not the other word that I thought it was. But yeah, the ascension from PS2, I hope it's not marred by unfair comparisons. We've all heard the Champ Bailey comparison between Patrick Surtain and that former Broncos legend, but another NFL superstar in Jalen Ramsey. Let Surtain be Patrick Surtain II. Let him blossom into his own legend and make his own star in the NFL. And again, through the first week of training camp under Evero, he's doing just that.
The Duchess jumping in with an early super chat as well. Thank you, my friend. Seriously, we love you. Appreciate you. She wants to know, when is the first preseason game? August 8th. The Denver Broncos, of course, have 3 preseason games. The first one is August 13th, Zach. So that's going to be here before you know it.
Yeah, and 2 days before that, that game's against the Cowboys. 2 days before that, though, the Broncos will be holding a joint practice with the Cowboys as well. So yeah, right around the corner, we're gonna have a live Broncos football game. It's pretty crazy.
With a second super chat, thank you, my friend. She says, I think the defense is energized now that Fangio is gone. Thoughts?
The whole team.
Yeah, it's just more of a, it's really like exercising a demon. And I don't say that I'm not trying to kind of rain on Fangio, but anytime there's a culture change based on a coaching staff coming in and out, it's incumbent upon the new coaching staff to kind of exercise the demon and move on. And you got to find ways to boost that and to accelerate that. Not only just, Zach, in terms of establishing who's the boss and here's what our philosophies are and all that, but like you've got the things you do, the things you say, the way you structure meeting rooms, the way you structure practices. It has to have your own stamp on it. And based on who you are and what that stamp is, will dictate just how big that point of demarcation is between you and the previous regime. When we're talking about bridging gaps here, I mean, the gap between Nathaniel Hackett, the gap between Vic Fangio, my golly, it's a chasm. So I think energy-wise, yes, not only is Nathaniel Hackett's energy just vastly different, this team's happy, they're excited, they're enjoying going to work, Zach, but then you add to that a force multiplier by the name of Russell Wilson, and now these guys have swagger. And not only that swagger and that confidence, but like, they look over there and they see a quarterback that they believe can take them to the promised land. I mean, that can do wonders.
Yeah, I mean, the gap between Fangio and Hackett is like from here to Alpha Centauri, the next star, just light years and light years away. And Hackett has revitalized the whole building, but it's not hard to do when you come to work and there's no music allowed on the practice field. There's this guy crossing his arms and sleepy Pat Shurmur up in the booth. What confidence and excitement does that incite? Not much. If you ever had a job, it doesn't matter if you're an NFL player, as long as you had a job and had a boss. If you ever had a nice boss and he got fired or then got a bad boss, you automatically hate your job that much more just by the virtue of who your superior is and the environment that he's condoning and harboring and laying down. And we saw the environment under Vic Fangio, Chad. It was like a morgue. And under Nathaniel Hackett, it's like a club. That's the main difference.
Travis Weber, Big T in the house. What's going on, bro? He says, good evening. The risers that I'm surprised about, Eric Sobert and Brett Rippon. Yeah, let's talk about those guys for a second here. Definitely two of the big risers. Eric Sobert, who, thanks in part to an injury to Greg Dulcich, the rookie third-round pick, vaulted immediately into some first-team rotation, but then he took that, and by golly, he ran with it. I mean, he has been one of the stars of the first week of training camp. And again, it's the first week, and he's a guy that is not penciled in yet as a starter. But like, if he if he sustains that tear, Zach, that momentum, that rate of play, I have a hard time seeing Albert Okwuegbunam now being able to vanquish him for the tight end one duties. And I think Dulcich, even though he's got the coaching staff on his side, I think he's going to be starting late enough to where it's going to be hard for him to bridge that gap, at least this summer. Now, it might be by the end of the year, Dulcich could be the guy starting at tight end. And then Brett Rippon, I talked to Luke yesterday on the phone after he got done with practice, and he said, dude, yeah, everyone's just like assuming Josh Johnson's QB2. No. It's going to be Brett. Like, you want to talk about chasms. He said there's a big chasm between how Brett is playing and how Josh Johnson is. And he said specifically that it really seems like Russell Wilson has been teaching Brett Rippon some things about how to get torque and power with your lower body, because that's been one of the knocks on Rippon, right, Zach, is that doesn't have much of a whip, but that's been apparently quite palpable how much more velocity and mustard he's putting on the ball. And of course, he's doing all the other things that Rippon does, which is get the ball to where it needs to go in a timely manner on schedule, things that coaches love about Brett Rippon.
The Eric Sauber development is the most surprising to me through training camp, far and away. It's the one thing I did not see coming, because the Broncos we thought was a tight end one in Alberto. They drafted Dulcich. They signed a couple players like Sauber. And there's also the narrative that Russell Wilson doesn't throw to his tight ends. And all he's done through a handful of training camp practices is throw to his tight ends. The good thing about Sobert in his case is his ascension is coinciding with the descension of Alberto. He's had a pretty quiet training camp to me. He hasn't made the plays he was making in OTAs and minicamp, and he can't stand to lose any ground. In terms of Brett Rippon versus Josh Johnson, I don't really have any interest or energy to have another quarterback competition conversation, Chad. I wish Brett the best. Anything he can learn off Russ will make him a better quarterback, but it doesn't matter to me who's holding a clipboard behind number 3.
Phil, what's going on, dude? Thank you for the big boy stars, my friend. Really, really appreciate that. He says, so great to see everyone on the field. Now I need to see pads and some hits. Hashtag let's ride. Yes, indeed. And that pedal's getting steadily put to the metal as the Broncos, today, day off, but pads are going on, full pads. I mean, they were in shells. That means helmet, shoulder pads, shorts. So you could see some contact, but specifically up front, Zach, when we talk about seeing how this O-line is going to coalesce, seeing exactly what the Broncos have on the D-line, you don't start really getting to the bottom of those questions until you start really seeing the pads come on and the contact is you get the full green light from coaches to at least have that initial pop, right? And we started seeing that a little bit yesterday, and that'll only continue.
So much for Justin Outen's goal to name the starting offensive line after the first week of training camp. That's going to take quite a while, I feel like, and some of the other positions will take a while to sort out. It might be where we don't know certain things until the third preseason game, and they're going into final cuts. But the more they practice, they get on the field, they're going to get in pads, full pads next week. We'll have a clearer picture of what the roster will look like.
Most definitely. Andrew Baker, what's going on, dude? One of our great legendary members of our community. He says, what's up, brothers and Broncos country? Man, Russ is not only a great QB, but just a great dude that puts in work. Hashtag MHH for life. Yeah, buddy. One of the cool things I thought Derek Wolfe said, in case you guys missed it, Derek Wolfe announced his retirement, signed a one-day contract with the Broncos to retire as he should as a Bronco. And then they let him in. He was in the building, obviously, to take care of that and the Broncos took that especially because he was an originally drafted Bronco. And even though he was never a Pro Bowler or an All-Pro, in terms of the individual accolades, he contributed to 4 of the greatest seasons of the last quarter century for the Denver Broncos. So they made him feel the love. He was in there. They did the media. They did not only a little video feature that they put out on Broncos.com and all their social media, Zach, but then they actually exposed him to the locker room. They let him go in there and talk to the guys. He broke them down for practice, and then they also put him on the podium for media post-practice. And one of the cool things, I mean, anytime Derek Wolfe gets to the microphone, I'm always all ears because you never know what that cat's going to say. But 2 things that jumped out to me, Zach. 1, he wants to get into media, so that's kind of cool. 2, though, this brings me back to Andrew's point as I meander here a little bit. He said to his teammates, hey, Russell's here. Trust him, follow him. He knows what he's doing. I love that he knows what he's doing. So get in line, get behind this guy, close ranks. Geez, I almost said crow's ranks. Close ranks around Russ because he can take you to the promised land.
That's just the same thing that jumped out to me as well. And he also said to the guys in the room that have been there for a few years, you were always this guy away from competing. You have that most important piece, which is Russell Wilson, that franchise quarterback. I love that Derek Wolfe kept the Broncos in that mindset. You know, he brought them back to what they were, those who weren't there, that they were always competitive. They were always trying, but they never had that last piece. And that last piece was quarterback. So the fact they have it now and Derek Wolf's talking about it, it's exciting.
Yep. I mean, people try to make, even the Broncos got a little bit fooled. Boise, I'm going to grab you right next, bro. Just hang tight 1 second. By the fact that, oh, the perception was we won a Super Bowl in 2015 without a quarterback. It's like, are you kidding me, dude? Peyton Manning, even with half his brain and body tied behind his back, is still legendary. You don't win that Super Bowl if it's Brock Osweiler. You don't get through that playoff gauntlet. You don't beat the Steelers in the divisional, and you sure as Sam Hill don't beat. If you did beat the Pittsburgh Steelers at home, you don't beat the Patriots. But I'm digressing here. The Broncos, for too long, Zach, fooled themselves into thinking because of that, oh, we're one middle of the road quarterback away from winning it all. And the last 6 years proves how asinine that philosophy is. Boise, man. What up, bro? He says, miss me on these mega wide receiver deals like Deebo Samuel just got. I'm glad we locked down Sutton, Cortland Sutton and Tim Patrick on the cheap. P.S. I sent an email about the fantasy league, but I don't know if you got it. Might have the wrong email. No, we got it. We got it, bro. We're just getting our ducks in a row on that front, my friend. So, and then Kenneth says, with a super thanks, bro. He says, after the Deebo contract, the Sutton and Patrick deals look sweeter and sweeter every day, Zach.
Another big money wide receiver contract. Another reminder that George Payton is indeed the GOAT. To sign 2 starting receivers and Sutton and Tim Patrick to team-friendly contracts, the 2 of them are the price of one average wide receiver one now. And not only that, to get both those receivers to restructure those contracts less than a year later, I mean, it's not that great if you're Cortland Sutton or Tim Patrick, but for the Broncos, man, did they beat the rush.
No doubt about it. It's going to be interesting to see if Jerry Judy ends up making himself the next guy to get paid in Denver. But he's still, I mean, they don't have to make a decision on Jerry Judy really by next spring, they'll have to decide if they want to exercise his 5th-year option, even though he's only entering year 4. It's kind of backward to me, Zach, that the deadlines for that are when they are, because you would think, well, I don't know, maybe if the timing's right, but still, Jerry Judy potentially under team control for another 2 years beyond this season.
Yeah, I think I know what you're trying to say. You have to exercise the 5th year like 2 years before the 5th year, and it gets confusing. But yeah, they can sit on him if they want, and they're in a wait and see mode. Obviously, he's under cheap control right now, relatively cheap. And if he balls out and takes a major step forward, they'll have a decision to make on a second contract. But until then, I'm not even entertaining that conversation about Jerry Judy.
GLP, as we lovingly call Gary Leach Palmer, he says, good afternoon. I'm down here by the border, but from here, it's looking good. Let's ride. Let's ride indeed. Make sure that AC is working good for you, GLP. I'm sure it is, my friend, but thanks for checking in. Appreciate the stars. You know this, man.
Thank you, Gary.
Also, Albert Knoppers with a very pertinent question. Is George Payton an exorcist? Yeah, he's a football priest on a whole other level. Like maybe we call him the football pope. I don't know. I mean, I'm just throwing the terms out there. I don't want to upset or offend any of our Catholic friends that are in our community, but I'm just making a joke here. Yes, that's part of this. Is Fangio was foisted on George Payton. George Payton said, "Okay, we'll do the 1-year thing and see how it goes." And it wasn't his guy, but he made nice. Zach, anytime you heard from Vic, anytime you heard from George, both guys independent of each other always made it sound like they were on the best of terms and they were sharing a brain. But when the rubber meets the road and you produce a 3rd consecutive losing season and you're not my guy, hit the bricks. And that was part, Zach, when we talk about exorcising demons, we're talking about, rebirth. We're talking about bringing it back from the brink. That equation, that was a big part of how he factored George, the interview process, the 10 coaches that he sat down with, who can do that, who can get us there the fastest, who can bridge the gap the fastest, and turned out, in his estimation, to be Nathaniel Hackett. And at least this far in, it feels like that was a good decision.
As long as Payton doesn't start crab walking like the Exorcist, then I'm okay with whatever he wants to do football wise. Obviously he's off to a great start through 2 years, but yeah, we'll have to entertain that nickname, Chad. Football Pope. That might fit in.
Howie frickin' day in the frickin' house. What's up to you, bro? Go Broncos, he says. Let's ride. Amen, big dog. It feels good. It feels good seeing the Broncos once again in good hands. And, being there, getting to see up close, reporting up close, just how things are coming together. You can get excited on offense. Obviously, Russell Wilson goes without saying, but Zach, it really feels like he is establishing a really good connection with Cortland Sutton. Tim Patrick, I mean, when you talk to Luke, who he's there for us every single day. So far, Zach, unquestioned wide receiver number 2 is Tim Patrick. And Jerry Judy has had his moments, but still kind of up and down a little bit. So it'll be interesting to see how that develops. And then Eric Sobert, you're going to get excited about a guy, Zach, that was almost an afterthought in terms of, they waited till how long did he languish on the free agent market? And then they brought him back. But it sure seems like in retrospect, it was the good decision because Alberto, you know what he can do as a pass catcher. All right. That's undisputed. You could argue in different ways he's an upgrade over Noah Fant in terms of being a pass catching threat just because of what he can do for you underneath. He doesn't just catch and fall down, Zach. He'll leap over dudes, he'll break tackles, or at least try his damnedest to. He might not have the same, even though in underwear, he was a tenth of a second faster than Noah Fant. I think with pads on, Noah Fant probably would beat him in a 40-yard dash, but I digress here. Alberto, if he ends up being your second best tight end in training camp, that's first world problems.
Yeah, it's hard for me to get excited about Eric Sobert. I'm not buying all that stock yet until he proves it, in the preseason or the regular season. I think it might be just a training camp fluke, but I always kind of held that tight ends in this Broncos offense are kind of just the luxury, the cherry on top. It's going to flow through the receivers and to an extent the running game. Anything they can get out of the collective of Sobert, Dulcich, and Alberto is just a bonus.
Yeah, and it sounds like, by the way, it sounds like Dulcich could be back. This is not me reporting anything. I'm just reading between the lines based on what Hackett said. I wouldn't be surprised if Dulcich is back at some point this week. So how much will that end up costing him in the grand scheme of things? Time will tell. David Wilder, of course, great to see you, buddy. Appreciate the support. He says, let's ride and go Broncos. Amen, big dog. Amen. Always great to see you, David. Thank you for the support, buddy. So yeah, we'll probably see Zach him sooner than later. Maybe by the end of this week, if little birdies end up being correct on Dulcich.
It'd be exciting. I hope they don't rush him back too fast and risk a re-aggravation, but they're just fitting in where they can fit in right now. Even Andrew Beck is out there making plays to tight end. So it leads me to believe that maybe it's more of a scheme thing with Hackett, finding those players and getting them open.
Michael says, sending thoughts and prayers to one of our Broncos country brothers going through a loss in their family. I will not mention his name. Well, hey, thoughts and prayers up. We don't know exactly what direction, but Broncos country, hey, that's a direction. So prayers up for that individual. I'm not sure who it is. If it's someone that we know that maybe could use a little lift from Zach and myself, maybe reach out privately and let us know. We'd be happy to help out. Phil says, was really cool seeing Peyton Manning on the field again. From what I've seen so far, I've got a feeling special teams is going to be awesome. # let's ride with some big time stars again. Thank you, Phil. Seriously, bro. It can come off as just like, that's just what you say. But seriously, we really appreciate the stars, my friend. And yes, there's a new sheriff in town. And I'm not trying to piggyback off of the Peyton Manning first half of his comment here, but Dwayne Stukes, man, he's shaping up this third phase of the Denver Broncos. This isn't going to be the Keystone Cops anymore under Tom McMahon. Like, this is going to be a true asset to the team, I think, moving forward.
People aren't talking about it enough. I mean, everyone says, oh, the major contrast of going from Fangio to Hackett, but how about going from Tom McMahon to Dwayne Stukes? A child at the controls to an adult at the controls in Dwayne Stukes, holding his players accountable, having them go through all the necessary drills to start practice. I love that Hackett and company are doing that, putting special teams first, and they're going to be better as a result, better in kick coverage and kick returns. Where they were dead last season, Chad, they're going to be, I think, in the upper half of the NFL. I'm excited.
So we also learned on Saturday the Broncos hosted a linebacker, Zach, a free agent whom many Broncos fans a few years ago, when he hit unrestricted free agency for the first time, were pining for. I mean, this was one of the trendiest names right here. This cat, Joe Schobert, on Broncos country's tongue. Zach, we'd get questions, we'd get DMs, people pining for Joe Schobert. Well, he ended up after Cleveland signing with Pittsburgh Steelers, and now the Broncos are kicking the tires. They had him in for a visit Saturday. What are your thoughts on the potentiality of a Joe Schobert signing, Zach? How would he fit in? What would it mean for guys like Jonas Griffith?
I like Schobert. I think he can help out the Broncos. He was way overpaid as a free agent. He's much better as a what he is now, which is a backup or reserve, but he can still play. You know, he had 100+ tackles the last couple seasons. He's decent enough against the pass. So I wouldn't mind it on the surface, but my question is, what about Baron Browning? Why did you move him in the first place if you're going to bring in another inside linebacker? You already have three. Isn't that enough in a scheme that devalues inside linebacker? So if they bring on Schobert, personally, I'm a little conflicted. He's a good player who can help out the defense, but they had a good inside linebacker that was helping out the defense in Baron Browning, and he's no longer playing that spot. I'm still a little perturbed about that.
Yeah, it's weird. It's weird. But so far, when they've been asked, like Ejiro Evero was asked about both Nick Benito and how Baron Browning is doing early in camp, and he said the things that you expect him to say in terms of, oh, the natural talents there, we're bringing them along, they're doing well, but kind of stopping short of anything like crowning them. Meanwhile, if the Broncos had to play a football game tomorrow with Randy Gregory still recovering, your starting duo right now would be Bradley Chubb and Malik Reed. So if this again, this I know, and Rome wasn't built in a day. It's going to take time for a guy like Baron Browning, as talented as he may be, to blossom into a bona fide pass rusher. If indeed, that's where they ultimately opt to keep him. But Zach, when you had him already performing at a high level off the ball as an inside linebacker last year, I still don't understand.
Right.
Why are you taking a strength off the field and turning him into a weakness? A weakness meaning if he's your fourth or fifth best edge rusher, but your first, second, or third best inside linebacker.
Exactly.
I mean, I'm reminded of some George W. Bush sayings from back in the day. That sounds like fuzzy math to me.
Yeah.
I'm that old.
Very, very fuzzy. Even if he blossoms, Barron does, into a premier pass rusher, h- how many snaps is he going to play on a weekly basis? They're not going to start him over Randy Gregory, who they paid $70 million to. He's not going to start over Bradley Chubb, excuse me, and he might not even get significant snaps over someone like Malik Reed, Jonathan Cooper, and now Chris Allen, who's on the field and practicing as well. I'm still holding out slight hope that Evero will surprise me and they made the right call with Browning. I still think it's a massive, massive mistake.
For what it's worth, Schobert, this is from the article Lance Sanderson wrote covering this topic of the Broncos kicking the tires, started 15 games for the Steelers last season, totaling 99 tackles, 57 of which were solo, 5 pass breakups, and an interception. And then, of course, he made the Pro Bowl in 2017 as a Cleveland Brown. And he's a guy that you can trust both against the run and in coverage, though. He's getting longer in the tooth by the day. He's not that old, 28, I think, but still, is he 28? I just read this. What is he? 28. Yeah, he's 28 years old, but he he doesn't look quite as explosive to me now that he looked even in his prime window there in Cleveland. And you expect that, right? Guys aren't going to stay in their prime forever, but uh, bringing in Schobert when you've got Josie Jewell, when you've got Jonas Griffith shining, and then you also brought in Alex Singleton, Zach, which is the farther we get into summer and the other moves we see kind of being done around, the more we're realizing that Singleton, despite his, hey, I led the Eagles in tackles twice, he was really brought in more, Zach, as a special teams help to Dwayne Stukes and depth at linebacker more so than being a true threat to start next to Josie Jewell.
I don't want to overreact too much because Schobert left the Broncos facility without a contract as far as we know. So it was just a flyer type visit. But If I'm Jonas Griffith, you said it right there. I'm pretty pissed off because I'm having a great training camp. I'm staking my claim to start at inside linebacker. Hell, I might be your best natural inside linebacker on the roster, and you're bringing in a has-been veteran like Joe Schobert for what reason? So again, I like a lot of what Evero has done, Hackett has done, but the Baron Browning situation leaves a bad taste in my mouth.
Clayton, one of our great supporters on Facebook each and every month. Appreciate you, buddy. He says, who do you guys think will surprise us in training camp? Kind of an underdog, kind of a sleeper. Zach, I mean, we've had a few days already, 4 official practices. What would be your answer for Clayton?
This is kind of cheap because you said, like, yeah, training camp's already started. So I'll give deep sleepers. They're both UDFAs. I mentioned them already. Chris Allen, undrafted free agent linebacker, edge rusher from Alabama. He's off the NFI list and practicing, and he was getting some run against the number 1 first string offense. So yeah, there's something there maybe. And also Jaquan McMillian, undrafted free agent, as Chad pulls him up there, undrafted free agent cornerback out of East Carolina. When the Broncos signed him after the draft, I looked into him and his tape. I mean, he's pretty airtight in coverage. He's a great, I think, slot cornerback at the NFL level. And if he continues the training camp he's had so far, he will, as I predicted back in May, unseat Essang Bassey at the minimum for a spot on the 53.
He reminds me a lot of Essang Bassey in terms of his measurements. He's not quite as physical. I don't think a player in terms of, Bassey's a guy you can play him in the nickel. He can play some safety, and you can trust him in terms of run fits. I'm not sure McMillian is quite there, but he's a significantly more productive guy on the ball. So you want tip passes, you want turnovers, you want a ball hawk kind of guy. That's what he has the potential to provide the Denver Broncos. So definitely an intriguing young corner, but as Eric writes here in the scouting report kind of breakdown on McMillian, it's there's maybe one spot at corner up for grabs, and that's if the Broncos keep 6 corners on the roster, because you got Surtain, Ronald Darby, K'Wan Williams, Michael Ojemudia, and then the 4th-round rookie, Damari Mathis. So that's 5. If they keep one more, he's McMillian. He's in the hunt alongside guys like Essang Bassey, Faion Hicks, the 7th-round pick, and others.
There's no way they keep just 5 cornerbacks, though. Not in this defense, not with Evero running it. There's no way. They're going to keep at least 6, I feel like, and also maybe 5 safeties as well. They're going to load up in the defensive backfield because of the scheme they're going to run. So it's a good situation if you're someone like McMillian, and not so good one if you're Essang Bassey.
Gary Leeds Palmer says, we should know a lot more this week when the pads officially are on. Everything is speculation until then, but speculate we shall. That's right. We take joy in the speculation. Keeps us going. You know this, GLP, and I know you do as well. David, appreciate that very generous super chat, my friend. Great to see you. Appreciate that. And he's saying to, was it Lawrence? Congratulations on getting ducked. I'm a Jeep nut. Good evening, Broncos country. Jerry Judy is having an amazing camp. And shout out, appreciate that. And he says, let's ride MHH for life. Yes, so far, I mean, it depends on who you ask, David. Our most reliable source on this front has been the guy who we sent to training camp every single day, and that's Luke Patterson. And he says that, you got to keep in mind the expectation for Judy is way up here. So when you see him producing anything that's not way up here, you're going to go, yeah. But compared to like other wide receivers on the roster, he looks like, of course, superstar. But what Jerry can be and what he's got it in him to be, and then compared to, of course, Cortland and Tim Patrick, he's been up and down. But, Zach, I don't worry about the fact that he's been a little up and down early. I think Russell Wilson's going to turn Jerry Judy into something special. This is the year. I do believe that for Jerry Judy.
I think I made this point on the radio show. It might have been the podcast, but I'll say it again. The Jerry Judy expectations or his standing in the fan base is a lot like, I'm going to say his name, guys, so brace yourselves, Drew Lock, in the sense that every time he makes the slightest mistake, it's always magnified 10 times more than if it's any other player. So if Jerry Judy drops a pass in training camp practice, it comes back to, oh, he's a bust. He's not going to ever produce. He's always going to be what he is. So he has a higher hill to climb than most others in his position. Some of that is also Jerry Judy's doing, but I've been way more impressed than not impressed with Judy so far. The rapport with Russell Wilson's there. Judy's sitting in on quarterback meetings. He's calling out Nathaniel Hackett and correcting him and coaching him up as well. You really couldn't ask for anything more from Jerry Judy based on the last couple seasons.
By the way, Jim Hilton, one of our great regulars on Facebook, reminding everybody to hit the thumbs up and show your support. Guys, Zach and I on our last episode, we brought it up a couple of times, and it might have annoyed you a little bit about, hey, like the video. Even if you're only checking out 2 minutes, just give us a quick like. And we were so stoked to see everybody did that. Like everyone gave it the thumbs up, and it makes a huge difference. So if you're watching on Facebook, you're watching on YouTube, you're going to break your football priest's heart if you participate in this chat, even if you're not talking, you're just listening, and you don't just go, it costs you nothing. You just like. We might not agree on everything, but if you at least respect the effort, give us a like, and thank you for that reminder. Jim, you the man, big dog. Okay, Howie, how aggressive do you guys think the defense will be from week to week? Zach, what has been your feeling on this?
Evero told us when he got hired that he wants to be aggressive and attacking and get after the quarterback and change the complexion of games. And everything I've seen and read and inferred has led me to believe just that. He strikes me so far as like a Todd Bowles type of coordinator. We're extremely aggressive, extremely blitz happy, and he's going to utilize all his horses in order to get after the quarterback and change games and make plays and force takeaways. So I think fairly aggressive. Obviously, it'll be dictated by the matchup, the quarterback they're playing, the situation down in distance, et cetera, et cetera. But as an overall mindset and scheme, I think you're going to see a lot more of an attacking style than you ever saw under Vic Fangio.
I think it will be closer in terms of what it looks like. No, how it's perceived by fans. I think it's going to be closer to Wade Phillips' defense than Vic Fangio, even though from a schematic perspective, it's going to edge closer to Vic in terms of coverage anyway. But Vic Fangio's whole thing when it comes to the rush is, I want to get home with 4. And in fact, Zach, anytime the Broncos successfully blitzed and got to the queue, you would hear about it from Vic after, because he'd go to the podium and he'd say, and y'all think I don't like to blitz, and it would happen once in a blue moon. And every time they did, man, he would stand on that freaking podium and pound his chest.
Of course.
He wanted to get pressure with 4 guys. And you know what? When you're the 2018 Bears and you've got the D-line and the edge presence to do that, all of a sudden it makes everybody on that whole defense look like $1 million. Everyone's looking like all pros and pro bowlers. But when you don't have the rush up front, that's when Fangio's scheme begins to kind of show its warts. And initially it looked like the Broncos were going to have that for Vic because you had Chubb, you had Vaughn, but he never had both guys on the field at the same time longer than 4 weeks, which was his first year. He had them both on the field for 4 weeks. And Zach, how many sacks did they get through 4 games? I'll tell you. 1, it was Chubb in the 4th game. He right before he got hurt, dude, he got a sack and then he got hurt for the year. So I'm rambling a little bit to explain to you that in this defense, not only are you going to have individual performances from Chubb and Gregory and other guys, they're going to get to, but you're going to see a more aggressive impetus from the coordinator. Philosophically, he'll throw more than just, hey, let's hope we can get home with 4 guys and play coverage. You're going to see more disruption on 3rd down. And, when you do that, Zach, you're taking some chances because you're pulling guys. It's a numbers game. You're pulling guys out of coverage to chase after the queue. So as long as that secondary is as good as we think it's going to be, that could play very, very well for this team.
And where's Vic Fangio now? Watching podcasts on his couch says a lot about his production or his defense's production in the NFL. I hated that about the Broncos the last couple of years. They rushed 4, they rarely blitz, and it was so maddening because every time they did blitz, or most times, they would get home or at least change the outcome of the play. And that's why if I'm Bradley Chubb, I could not be happier. I'm in a contract year without Vic Fangio now. And you mentioned never having Vaughn and Chubb on the field, Chad. Even if Fangio did, I don't think it would matter that much considering the mindset that he had. Like you mentioned, the get home with 4, bend but don't break. It's not
Mm-hmm.
really conducive unless you have all pros up and down your front seven to winning at the NFL level in the year 2022. Evero style, which is closer to Wade Phillips, like you said, is a lot more conducive to it. That's something I'm really, really happy about.
Yeah, what's crazy is like Wade Phillips, he had a dominating edge presence. Uh, was it 2 years? He was here, yeah, 2 years. Wait, 15, 16. He was here 17 with Vance, right?
No, it was Joe Woods. He left.
That's right. That's right. Hello. So only those 2 years, but both years he had Vaughn and DeMarcus Ware, even though Ware was quite banged up, specifically in year 2. That was the year Shane Ray actually provided a modest return on investment. But what I'm getting at here, though, is he had those guys on the edge wreaking havoc, and he still would throw blitzes at opponents, dude, and it just frazzled him. Andrew says, I'm loving this convo compared to last year, but with Russ at quarterback, is it still coaching? Hashtag MHH for life. Meaning, Zach, what your interpretation of what he's asking us here?
I guess is coaching still as important as I've been preaching the last couple of years? And yes, it is, because we saw Russell Wilson in Seattle and he was still the same quarterback, but he had god awful coaching. They didn't let him throw. They didn't let him go up tempo. They didn't give him any input into the play calling or game prep. And the Broncos are undoing all of that and giving him that power and influence and that confidence. So, yeah, it helps having Russell Wilson, but it also helps having a forward-thinking mind in Nathaniel Hackett that's going to get the most out of every player on offense, but especially the quarterback.
Yes, coaching is always critical. It's always critical. It's what separates the good from the great, from the bad. I mean, and if you can combine that with, chicken combo, great coaching with elite quarterback, that's where you start getting some special production. Look who it is, dude. Miguel. It has been a minute, my dog. We've missed you. I've wondered after your well-being. I've been up at night going, I wonder what Miguel's up to. And I'm not kidding. I'm like, where's Miguel been, dude? What's going on? So it's great to have you back in the saddle with us, my dog. He says, it's been a while since I caught a live one. I hope all is well, and I'm loving the vibe out of Dove Valley. Heck yeah, dude. It is. It just feels like the page has been turned. We talk about exorcising demons. It's like when my family had the virus back in January, we're all down for the count for about, a week is when you're really down for the count. And then based on, restrictions, you don't want to spread it. You're really stuck at home for 2 weeks, Zach. And then once that's done and all this darkness and you're feeling better and you're back on your feet, or at least you're like working your way out, you want to open up the windows, the doors, fresh air, like clear it out, get it out of here. And that's exactly what's happening right now. Is the Denver Broncos are exorcising the coronavirus that was Vic Fangio.
Yeah, I mean, it's a pretty apt comparison. And, once you get through a bad time, you want to you take pleasure in the simple things. If you go through a breakup, food doesn't taste good, but the first time it tastes good again, Chad, you're enjoying and grateful that, a piece of bread tastes like it does. So the fact that the Broncos, the last couple of years, I'm assuming, at least last year, they weren't enjoying what they were doing. They weren't having fun out there, and that's what they're supposed to be doing, is having fun. But now there's music, people are laughing, people are jovial, people are lively, and except for those Guardian cap helmets, Chad, it's a whole different vibe in Dove Valley.
And by the way, Miguel, I wasn't joking, dude. I'll speak for myself. I do think about you guys, all right, especially the key people that are in the community that are participating in the chat every day, throwing down supers, throwing down stars. Like, I do keep a mental Rolodex of how you guys are doing. Where are you? Are you involved? Are you doing okay? Believe it or not. Robert, was there a fight between Garrett Bowles and Bradley Chubb, Zach?
A scuffle. It's going to happen. Even Garrett Bowles, he got up there on the podium and said, listen, guys, you got to stop hyping up these fights, these skirmishes we have. It's training camp. Every single team has one. It's hot. You're out there hitting each other over and over and over again. Things are going to boil over. A lot of testosterone, a lot of, just fired up emotions going on out there, hormones on the field, Chad. So it's no big deal. It's an edge rusher versus a tackle. It's going to happen. And like Garrett Bowles said, not only did he say they're brothers, which is true, he complimented Bradley Chubb and said his bull rushes are ferocious. He's going to have a big season. There is nothing to see here, folks. Nothing.
Cuero in the house. What's going on, big dog? Appreciate the super chat. He says, what's up, guys? I saw someone post a comment on a video saying the Broncos should post up all the negative quotes from media in their locker room.
Not enough space for that.
True. But, you hear the phrase bulletin board material, Huero, for a reason. You can find motivation in a lot of different ways. And I don't think the Broncos, though, to be frank with you, like those days of like living on proving people wrong, I think is mostly in the rear view. Like they're looking forward on what we can now achieve with Russ. And in the final analysis, Zach, if it turns out to prove a bunch of hot take artists coldly wrong, they'll probably take some pleasure in that, but I don't think it's really their main focus right now.
If I had to take one, I would take Nate Davis's 8-9 prediction and put it in the bathrooms as toilet paper, Chad. That would serve it better. But, I agree with you. They're going to look past the last 5 years. They're going to look forward to the new era they have in Russell Wilson and Nathaniel Hackett. They don't want to come off as victims. Like, woe is me. Look at us. People are picking on us. We're not getting the hype, blah, blah, blah. Feel bad for us. No, they're going to go out there week 1 at Seattle and prove that things are different. And then the bandwagoners will start to latch on. So yeah, motivation does exist, but they don't have to go looking forward and reveling in that mindset. It's a loser's mentality.
It really is. And it's like Derek Wolfe said, follow Russ. He knows what he's doing. Rally behind this guy. And Russ, hey, when something happens that does prove a naysayer or a hater or a trope wrong, Russ will bring it up, but he's not going to do it in the public eye. He might bring it up to his teammates or something like that, but he's going to stay neutral, baby.
Listen, y'all,
neutral.
Y'all need to get over
Here's
this fighting
Garrett Bowles
thing.
talking about
listen, y'all need to get over this fighting. Listen, y'all need to get over this fighting thing. Brothers fight, right? I mean, it is what it is. I mean, we're brothers. I mean, sometimes, brothers have to fight, to get the best out of each other, but it's healthy competition. There's nothing against me or Bradley Chubb at all. I love him dearly. I truly do. I think he's a phenomenal pass rusher. I'm grateful I get to go against a top player like him every single day. The way that he moves his hands, the way he moves, he's a bigger set guy. So, it's good for me to feel that weight in my hands and be able to anchor. His bull rush it's ruthless. I mean, he catches you quick. You're on the ground. So, I think highly of him. I think he's have a monster year. He's making me better. I'm making him better. And it's a special thing to be able to go through camp to have a pass rusher like that.
That's right. So it's all it is, man. And here's the thing you got to remember. When Bowles was coming out as a prospect out of Utah in 2017, one of the things that was always brought up by the draftniks of the time period was his looking for work penchant and how that sometimes Zach would go past the whistle. Now, I'm not going to go so far as to say that Bowles is dirty. It's not that. It's that he is so eager and he's just so physical. He's out there trying to, it's the bully mindset. And when you're in training camp, that can sometimes rub the other guy wrong. Like at the same time, it's like the old Gary Kubiak maxim, iron sharpens iron. And that's what's happening between those two guys, as it's happened, the last 2 training camps that I can remember. Chubb, the last few training camps, Chubb's been there. This has been a storyline. It's nothing eating Gilbert grape. Okay. It's nothing rotten at the core here. It's just the way Chubb just is not going to lay down if Bowles pushes it a little beyond where he should. And Bowles is not going to stop pushing it a little bit beyond where he should. Jeff, thank you for that super, bro. It's great to see you. Much love.
Thank you, Jeff. Yeah, I was going to say, Chad, they do this every training camp, it seems like. It becomes a headline every single year. Garrett Bowles and Bradley Chubb going at it. No, it happens to every single team. And you're talking about 2 intense competitors. And, you mentioned Garrett Bowles' history and his attitude. Well, Bradley Chubb's in a contract year. He has to prove that he's the top dog, that he's the alpha, that he should be the long-term edge rusher 1 on this defense. So you're talking about one of the best defensive players versus one of the best offensive players, and they're going head-to-head like this constantly all day, every day. It's going to happen. It's okay.
Marcus, appreciate you, buddy. Hold tight for 1 second. On that subject, real quick, Zach, Bradley Chubb, Garrett Bowles. I agree with you, and I've said it already. Nothing to see here. But for fans trying to figure out the difference, sometimes there is something to the fights. And I want to take you back to 2019 when Emmanuel Sanders and Cortland Sutton had to be separated, and you could hear Emmanuel Sanders screaming, "You haven't proved nothing in this league yet." And then what happened? By midseason, both he and DT shipped out of town. Now, DT had nothing to do with that. So forget that I even mentioned DT. But there was something going on, Zach, between Cortland Sutton and Emmanuel Sanders in that particular camp that was meaningful. And I think it was, in retrospect, being able to look back on it now with 2020 vision, I think that was Emmanuel Sanders, right, feeling which way the wind was blowing. That here's this young up-and-comer, and DT and I were both getting a little long in the tooth. And, he's pretty, as far as Cortland Sutton, he's assertive. He's alpha mentality. Like he did his bow down rookie thing 2018. He hey, you're the guys, and he did his thing. He was respectful, but that was 2019. All right, I'm not kissing anybody's boots anymore. I'm here to work. And Emmanuel Sanders, he's like, hey, I see the tidal wave coming. I'm like powerless to stop it. And it turned out he was powerless.
To me, that was his pride being hurt, his ego being hurt. That's why he lashed out. It's also worth noting they're both receivers, and those are divas. So I take that, into two different context. And you know what, Chad? Even with that fight happening, the world kept spinning. The season still happened. The games were played. It's a storyline every training camp. At every training camp, I say it's no big deal. These things will happen again.
Marcus says, and appreciate you, buddy, from across the pond. Hi, guys at MHH and all Broncos fans. Love and respect from Great Britain. How do you feel Nick Benito has done at camp, Zach?
He's looked like a rookie edge rusher who still probably needs a year in an NFL conditioning program to be that, long-term viable starter. If he's even going to be that, we don't know just yet. He's had some flashes. You can definitely see why the Broncos invested what they did in him. You can also see why he fell to where he did and why the Broncos kind of want to put him on the back burner. They have their main edge rushers. He's a nice luxury piece to have, and they're going to work him along slowly. So I'm overall more encouraged about Benito.
So here is what the head coach said, all right, specifically about Nick Benito. He said, quote, he's done a really good job. For him, there's a lot more calls. There are a lot more things that are going on compared to what it's been like in college football. There's always the transition that goes on with any rookie, but you could see his speed. He has that athleticism, and you can see the ability for him to bend. There's still some of those little hiccups here and there with all the adjustments, because this game is about communication, especially with how we like to stress the guys out. We like to motion and do all kinds of stuff. He's talking offensively. Slow it down, speed it up. You can't just line up in one spot and rush, which is what Bonito did his whole career at Oklahoma. You just have to do a great job of talking to your other people and knowing what's happening. That's what he has to work on. So the trait stuff, Zach, he's showing it. No problem. It's the between the ears stuff. Surprise, surprise. That's going to take him some time.
As always, yeah. I mean, his physical traits were never in question. It was how his mental abilities would translate from college to the NFL. And when you're an edge rusher and you're coming in and you're already behind the eight ball in terms of the players in front of you, it's going to take a little bit. Don't expect a 10-sack breakout year from Benito in year one. That's my opinion.
We have the silent one, as he is known, Jacob Foster, throwing down some stars on Facebook. Thank you, buddy. Appreciate you, my brother. Really good to see you. David says, iron does sharpen iron. These healthy competitions in practice will only bring good things when we play the games. It's true, man. And I think that phrase, of course, it's biblical from, I forget which one, from Psalms, but iron sharpens iron. Broncos fans are always going to look back fondly on that maxim, because that's what the Broncos, that was their mantra for 2015 training camp when Gary Kubiak arrived with a fresh buzz cut, or pardon me, flat top crew cut, whatever you want, high and tight Gary Kubiak, ready to go to battle. And everyone was wearing those iron sharpen iron shirts, all the players, all the coaches. And that was their rallying cry through that whole season. And hey, it's literally proverbial, right? So I love it. I think that everything we've talked about tonight with regard to not just Garrett Bowles and Bradley Chubb, but this whole process of these players going at each other, competing for a job, it brings the cream to the top. And let not your heart ever be troubled on that topic. The cream will rise to the top.
My only worry is that the iron is going to cut whoever's sharpening it. So what I mean by that is I don't want any injuries. I want the Broncos to be competitive and be intense and have fun out there and have a good, productive training camp. But I'm knocking wood every day, man. No injuries.
Yeah, amen. And Josh Packer, he's right there with you,
yeah,
pounding the table. And Jeremy, thank you, dude. I'm going to trust that what you're saying here is correct on the Proverbs. I said Psalms, didn't I? I meant to actually say Proverbs because, anyway, But and then Phil saying, hey, sending some stars for Albert since he can't send any. Dude,
thank you, Phil.
Phil, you're a Hall of Famer. We love you. We appreciate you. Is there anyone, Zach, before we dip out of here, we're about out of time. When we talk about risers and fallers, we've mostly kind of kept it positive, talking about the risers. Anyone that we've missed, we haven't talked perhaps as much about defensive risers or anyone in particular that is kind of dropping the ball, maybe disappointing a little early on?
Number one guy that came to mind to me was Alberto. I've been championing him for the last 5 months or so, whatever, since the Noah Fant trade, and he has come out and been overtaken by Eric Sobert. So I'm a little disappointed in Alberto, but I think when the pads go on, when the games start, he'll be more productive. I can't really, maybe someone in the defensive backfield like Sang Bassi, or I haven't seen much from Michael O. Haven't heard much from him either. He had a decent offseason program and not much in training camp so far. And maybe by association, we talked about Joe Schobert. Maybe Alex Singleton's not looking that good in training camp. Maybe he's a faller as well.
Right, because we know Jonas Griffith has looked good. Like, he's gotten a lot of buzz so far. So usually it's not always a zero-sum game, Zach, but usually when someone rises, it comes at the expense of someone else, which means they're falling. So Alex Singleton could perhaps be viewed early on anyway as a potential faller. But last thing, and then we're going to get out of here for tonight. Bradley jumping in, great Super Chat superstar, been with us a long time. We got to meet him at the stadium last fall. By the way, hope we get to see you again this coming season, week 3 against the Niners, Sunday Night Football. We're going to be there, MHH meet and greet. It's going to be a gas. So Bradley, he says, howdy, it's my 66th birthday.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday indeed. And he says, just want to thank you for all the content you're responsible for. It's an awesome amount. I'm loving the new format for the radio show, MHH for Life. Really, dude, that's awesome. And enjoy your 66th, bro. Happy birthday from us. We'd sing, except it would get copyright claimed, believe it or not, on the social medias because of the algo bots. They're everywhere, dude. But yeah, that's a good reminder, Zach, before we do dip out of here. Guys, it's easy. If you're out of market and you want to listen to the Mile High Huddle show on 98.1 FM Mile High Sports Radio in Denver, it's all good. There's an app or there is the app. You can either download the Mile High Sports Radio app. That's one option. Or go to our Twitter accounts, mine or Zach. We retweet these all the time. You can listen live, or even if, say, between 2 and 3 p.m. you're tied up and it's not possible to listen live through the internet player, we also tweet out the link to listen on demand after the fact. The episodes get edited and uploaded as an on-demand podcast, usually within about 2 hours after the time we end the broadcast. So just make sure you're following Zach and I. Go to our Twitter account, scroll down far enough, not that far because it was just Friday, it was the last show. You'll see the links on how to listen. Also, it's up on the community tab on YouTube if you scroll on that, and then also on the Facebook group, MHH Superfans, it's there as well.
Happy birthday, BD. Trust me when I say you don't want to hear me sing. Even if we could sing happy birthday, it would not be pretty on your ears. But I hope you're having a great one, and thank you for popping in here with us tonight. But that is going to do it for the Huddle. Almost didn't mess it up yet. That is going to do it for the Mile High Huddle podcast. In the meantime, until tomorrow when we're back on, follow us on Twitter at HuddleUpPod. You can follow the main account on Twitter at Mile High Huddle. You can follow Chad on Twitter at Chad and Jensen, myself at Kelberman NFL, and Scott on Twitter at Scout Kennedy. If you guys want some new merch, you guys know what it is, where it is, huddleuppod.com. Get yo swag on. That feels good to say again. And facebook.com/milehighhuddlepod. Like that page. Follow that page. Guys, if you haven't already, please go to Apple Podcasts. Leave your football priest as you see a 5-star review for a chance to win some merch each and every month. But if you can't do those things, please, as you see ticking below you, subscribe, like, and share this video and every video you see on the channel. It really helps us grow and reach more Broncos fans just like you.
We love you. We appreciate you. Small thing. Make sure you like it before you dip on out. Shout out to these great supporters on Facebook tonight. Phil McLaughlin throwing down serious baller stars. Thank you, buddy. Howie freaking Day as well. Some serious baller stars. And Jacob Foster. Gary Leeds Palmer, Miguel, Marcus, Lawrence, Travis Weber, Andrew Baker, David Wilder. So many of you that we have come to know and love throwing down tonight, and we appreciate that on Facebook, especially with the season getting going, the sleepy summer. It's over. Tomorrow begins August, and we're off to the races, baby. On YouTube, these great Super Chat superstars tonight, starting with the Duchess. Michaela, love you, appreciate you. Christian, Kenny, let's see here, Boise Man, David, Huero, Jeff, much love and respect. Appreciate each and every one of you. Don't forget to catch us tomorrow on the radio, 2 p.m., 98.1 FM. Check our Twitter for the link if you want to listen out of market.
See y'all tomorrow, guys. Have a great rest of your Sunday. Take care. And as always, go Broncos.